looking for is that, is there any of that portion of Mr. Nix's memo that we need to discuss further this evening?
Let me just ask a question. The enhancement question. I don't recall an extensive discussion around enhancement. That was going to be my next comment, if we haven't yet approached that sticky.
Well, okay, to that end, let's go ahead and do that, Mr. Folkrod. To that end, we have discussed this evening that the PRRO designation obligates the applicant with regard to tree preservation in a much greater manner than he would be obligated without the PRO designation. I saw that as an enhancement.
Oh, and I was thinking of that in the context of more strict and limited.
Well, I think it supports both of those statements, but
Okay.
that may not be the only one, but I certainly, I view that as an enhancement that comes from the PRRO. Another enhancement that comes from the PRRO is that part and parcel to that are the legal documents that, as Mr. Mosheri said, put the teeth in the architectural control that we wouldn't otherwise get without the PRRO. That's an enhancement. That put the teeth in the age restriction, 55 and older, that we wouldn't get otherwise. I may have missed some. But I found, in my mind, I thought that those supported the both the more strict and limiting standard as well as the an enhancement that we would not be assured in the absence of the PRO designation, as Mr. Nix put in his point.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, in my opinion, this is, take it for what it's worth, the most important enhancement that is quantifiable is the amount of open space for 46%. That's the most quantifiable. And if you look at the exhibit that we have, we take Musson Elementary School, 17.5 acres. That happens, it's coincidental that we have 17.5 acres of open space. So you really get the impression, and you can size it up to layman's terms, how much open space we have on this site. And that is the best example of an enhancement that I can attest to. That is, in the PRO, it has the teeth.
Yeah, I was remiss in mentioning that, but certainly open space. I mean, when you think of all the PUD proposals that we saw where we're scrambling to find 40% of open space, and in the absence of a PRRO on this parcel, developing it using the underlying zoning would only result in a 10% open space requirement. Good luck trying to get somebody that's obligated to 10% to come up to 44.58, if I recall off the top of my head correctly. Whatever it is, 44+%. You wouldn't get that.
Yes.
You might get 30 and say, that sounds great. You wouldn't get 35.
And we're going to improve upon that at the next meeting.
45 plus.
I guess I just I'm sorry.
Okay. My question was on the length of the building. I know we're getting open space because of the length of the building, with it being, in one area, but since that is beyond the master plan limit, I wonder how you interpret that fitting in.
It's a great question. I'll go ahead and address that. We have a proposal for a building length that exceeds not the master plan, but the planning ordinance. And the reason it does is because we don't have anything in our planning ordinance that would accommodate this use, which would be senior assisted living. The only thing we have in our ordinance now is based on single-family home. There might be some multi-family.
Multiple family homes.
Multiple family homes, which is the 135-foot restriction. Our ordinances don't contemplate the use that we're considering here. We do have the latitude to take that into consideration on this proposal.
I think as part of that also, and that has been one of the complaints that have been, recognized by the public. There's a couple different elements to that. I guess one is the screening, berming, and landscaping to shield, not totally mitigate the view, but just to shield that view from adjacent public spaces. And also the architectural features that are designed into the building itself, as indicated on the elevations that we've been provided. It's not a straight wall by any means. It bounces a lot. There's a lot of architectural features, vertically and horizontally both, on that building design as it's been presented to us. And most everybody sitting in this room wasn't around when the shopping center went in, but we went through the same kind of a concept idea of design of that facility and what it would physically look like. And then when it came down to the actual site plan process, the planning commission and board held the applicant to those concept designs that, no, we're not going to get a straight line building. We will get a building that looks as it was built today in that shopping center, with the architectural features, with the shielding of, in that instance, the HVAC on the roof, and all those features. It wasn't by accident of how that was done. And here we have a building with a lot of articulation in the design of that building, between the roof lines, the dormers that are there, the pillars, the windows, the balconies, everything that's there. We'll see a site plan and architectural drawings that will basically mirror that image if it comes in, if this moves forward. It won't be, well, we wanted to change, we couldn't do it because it cost. No, that doesn't cut it. That never cuts it here. What they're representing to us is what will be built, that or something better.
We don't have a 450-foot linear face in this building, right? I mean, we got...
No single face is that big, no.
Right. You got an atrium in the middle there somewhere, right?
It's two buildings, 210 feet, connected by a 40-foot atrium. It's exactly the dimensions, within a foot or two of what you have, but a much shorter height, the Eagle Creek Academy. You have two buildings that are 210 feet connected by a 40-foot atrium, but their 40-foot atrium is much higher. Their one side of the building is 50 feet tall, the other side is about 35 feet tall. We're 25 and 35.
With no berm and no...
That's correct.
On the Eagle Creek.
One thing that's important that Mr. Nix is alluding to, it didn't hit right in the head. I have 2 years to bring it to you, or it goes away. My PRO is, if I don't deliver, I am on a timeline to produce the detail that is promised under the contract. And if it's not, it's starting all over again.
Well, we expect Roger to be back before the 2 years.
That's the more strict and limited character. That's very more strict and limited. You don't get that from anything else.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So another more strict and limiting element.
So I guess, and Amy, in part, that's, I think, helps to address that idea of the size, the bulk of that building.
True.
It's just not a plunk down on a piece of property and, oh my gosh, this is massive. I would agree with you then if that was the situation. But one, I think you're going to have to go inside the site to really see the building, and two, when you see it, it's going to look, it appears to be designed to look very handsomely, very, very pretty building from an architectural standpoint, the way it's designed. And that's not easy with a building, that does all of this building is going to do. So.
I agree with that, but I'm wondering, we know what the actual length of the building is, but
Yes.
visually, what will we see when, that would be, I guess, how we would evaluate is the line of sight, to know what we will visually experience.
Well, we've seen some of those renderings. I imagine in the next proposal, that's going to change now, between now and January, we're going to see a little more of that drawn out for us. Enhancement question addressed to your satisfaction for this evening's discussion, Mr. Folcott?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Was there something else in Larry's memo prior to the recommendation part that we had not covered?
We haven't really touched the density thing. That may be a long discussion.
Well, I think we did a little bit, but maybe maybe we missed some things, and maybe that's something we explore further next time. But the density question, if you recall, I mentioned that the density issue really pops up because of the lack of mechanism within our ordinance to address this type of use. So we have a widely exaggerated density question. In comparison to the site plan, we've seen the applicant's traffic study address the impact of people that live in this proposed community coming on the roads. We found that it's less of an impact. It is a bit more traffic, but less of an impact. The density question of what's proposed, because the units are smaller given the use, given the needs of the seniors that are being served by this community and age restricted by law, essentially, by agreement, means that, well, they've interpreted it to mean they need less space. These seniors need less space, whether it's assisted living or whether it is independent living. The size of the units would be smaller, although I note, just while I'm saying this, that the size of the independent living units are roughly the same size as the condos at Silver Creek, right? And I hear that they were
About 600 square feet.
And you know what?
Half the size.
61 single-family homes has a roof coverage area of 308,000 square feet.
Well,
But this goes
Square
to,
feet.
when you get to the density, you look at roof coverage and what's the impact of the site. 61 single-family homes, and it's in our chart, and compared it to what it would be for current MRD, and how much coverage of building and parking you have is greater than what is proposed. So we have, yes, 284 dwellings proposed. But those 284 dwellings in its totality has less roof coverage and coverage over the site than 61 single-family homes.
These are very
And
dense.
so when you say less roof coverage,
These are small.
one of the concerns that we have is with regard to impervious structure, because it affects the water management on the site and a number of other things. When you take natural vegetation growth and you replace it with a rooftop or a driveway or a parking lot, you've replaced it with impervious structure. The water still comes down in the form of rain and has to go somewhere. So the additional density, I think what I just heard Dominic say, is the rooftops and the driveways and the road impervious structure that is proposed here would be less than it would be in a single-family home development based on the zoning, correct?
Yes. And equal to HDC built out at 4 units per acre. And it is more than